I was inspired to start this project because loads of collieries had 062s, and I'm going to come on to that in a little bit. The 56 access lasted really quite a long time for Western Region Steam, and it would mean that I could do some really heavy end of steam weathering. But also, Bachmann are re-releasing theirs for 140 quid. Now, I picked up this one from about 10 years ago for 28 quid on eBay, so it got me thinking, how cheaply could I detail mine up versus Bachmann's brand new one, which is actually exactly the same model as what I picked up for 28 quid, but for 140 quid. So it kind of got me thinking about what I could do to detail mine up, so we're going to get into that. So I've chosen this side as the side that I am going to remove the BR emblems from, and this is going to become the NCB side. So, just going to use the etch pen, rub away really. Massively effective tools these are, really cheap on eBay as well. If you use them like I am now, it's not going to damage anything else, so it's not going to damage the rivet detail or anything like that. It's just going to bring off that decal. Tend to find that with these older Bachmann ones, they're alright to come off. Certain firms are a little bit of a pain. Dapol, I'm currently working on their Hawthorne Leslie. You can just see the funnel of it now. Yeah, it's quite tricky to do, but on the Bachmann stuff it's quite good. So, but yeah, that's basically how I do it. Etch pen, a little bit of elbow grease, nice and simple. I'll then go and give this a wash to make sure none of the fibre bits are still there when I apply the NCB parts. Alright, so the loco has been somewhat NCB-ified. It's had some Railtech decals stuck to it there. Now I'm going to turn my attention to actually weathering this model. Now, I'm going to weather this to high heaven. My thinking being the NCB wouldn't clean it, and neither would BR. I'm depicting this as one of the last few in service. So, this is going to be my best friend to start with. This is Railmatch Weathered Black, and it is by far my favouriteest weathering product. It creates a really nice lived-in sort of look for models. So if I just get another model that I've worked on with it. This 1361 was weathered with it on the smoke box and the running bite and everything like that. You can use it like layered up, so like it's a blank grey like on the smoke box there, and you can like rub it away so it gets stuck in any riveting detailing like on this 1361 on the tanks. And basically that's going to be my plan to start with at least, and then reverse engineer it from there. So you can kind of see the way the weathered black is kind of affected there. Basically I've painted all the bits that I want to be the block grey at the moment, and then I'll move on to like weathering the sides in a little bit when this has dried. I have also done this to the chassis, obviously just making sure that it's clear of any of the contacts and things like that. But yeah, no, it's alright at the moment. Alright, and for 25 quid, there's a lot of model there, a lot of model. You can kind of see how I do this here. We've kind of got two riveted parts here. I'm just going to streak down with the cotton bud, just to create some vertical streaking. Like I say, this is all going to get built on, but it's just the first layer of weathering this. It just gets stuck in all the rivets, a little bit of streaking begins to come through, and that's basically the key to it. Thinking where sort of would naturally build up, and the rivets obviously is where it would naturally build. Not really a fan of how these Railtech transfers seem to have the film in some lights, but I'll do some work to them a little bit later on. But yeah, basically nice and simple. Lather it on to start with, wipe off using it. Now seems a pretty good time for an update. The model has had its first bit of weathering done. That was with a weathered black, and then it's also had a, excuse me for dropping that, it's also had a slightly lighter grey tone done over the top of it, which is one that I've mixed up using acrylics. Now I'm going to do it again for the NCB side. Really simple with this, I just paint it on. Joy of acrylics, they take ages to dry. Well, I say ages, they don't dry out while you're still working. So you can see lazily painted it all over there. Now this you can kind of see from the top of the pot that I'm using is that it's a mix of greys, whites and blacks, just to get a varied tone. In theory, what I quite like is that with every brush stroke there's a slightly different tone on there. And then with a slightly damp cotton bud, I'm just gonna streak down the tanks. Joy of these tanks is they are really flat, so they take a lot like this. And yeah, it's just a case of just beginning to bring some of the lighter tones in. You can kind of see how it's blending in with the dark ones that were there before it. Swap into a dry end now, just to vary up how it works. But yeah, you can just kind of see there how the different tones are coming in. I'm going to put it down because this is really a two-handed job and I've broke my tripod, and then I'll catch up with you after I've done it. And literally 30 seconds later, you can see the effect that that's had on it. Just a little bit of tonal variation makes such a big difference. I find this Bachmann BR green to be quite dark, so you kind of got to do some lighter tones on top of it to affect it properly, and I think it's kind of come out like that. You can see the streaking is short and stubby in some places, slightly longer in others, as if it's been half-heartedly cleaned, not massively. The idea is that both sides are pretty grotty. The BR side is really actually quite grotty. The NCB side is relatively grotty as well, as it would be industrial, but just for the sake of it being quite different than a lot of other colliery stuff that I've seen, I think it kind of works having this sort of weathering done on it. You can see I'm beginning to do some work on the smoke box there, adding in some rust tones. Also on this dapple tank that I'm working on, you can kind of see that I've done the same thing. I also did the same with my Andrew Barclay, my Peckett, my Planet Industrials Victory. I'll leave links in the comment section to those videos. But yeah, you can kind of see how I've put the flame damage coming through. This is what happened when the smoke boxes got really hot over the years and they weren't really that well maintained. They got these rust patches. I think it's to do with like the metal's beginning to degrade a little bit and thus rust's easier. But yeah, it's a nice little feature and adds a little bit of interest to the front of the loco, hence why I've put it on the 56. BR locos add this as well as industrial locos, so with this being both industrial and mainline, it kind of suits it.
So kind of carried on with the rust theme, but instead of using the new rust tone that I used on the smoke box, I'm using a darker rust tone. So for older rust, basically just spot checking bits around the locomotive, things that I've seen on examples of these 56XXs, or just generally other designs that I've seen and where they tended to pick up rust and where I think it'll look good on the model. The tanker filler on this side is way too much. I went back and changed it afterwards, but basically all I do is kind of add a rust spot at the top, and then kind of like streak it down with a cotton bud. It's really simple but quite effective, and depending on like how thick you make the running bits, it can be quite a nuanced effect, or it can be quite a brutalist effect. Now all this is going to be weathered again with a darker tone over the top of it, a general scummy, roughy grey tone over the top of it. So it doesn't really matter if these aren't too neat, it's just going to be like a back into that overall grime over the top of it. But yeah, looks alright.
In my experience, the best weathering comes from research. So I've done some. This is a photograph taken actually in 1937, which you wouldn't think locos ever got that grubby before then, but you know, almost like they were working. But this is just interesting for the way that like the rust tones kind of came through, and you know, this is obviously 20 odd years before my model was depicted, but it's just interesting to kind of see where rust and stuff appeared on Great Western engines. I know it's a tender engine, which kind of gets me onto this, which is a little bit closer. Obviously I don't own any of these images, these are all taken from books and whatever. But this is a Stania tank engine. But you can kind of see how filthy that is. Actually taken at Tower Station. But yeah, you can see how filthy that is. Now obviously, tank engine, that's good. Pulling passenger coaches, not really what 56XXs tended to spend their time doing. But it's a good idea of how grotty some BR tank engines got. If only there was an image of a really well work-worn 56XX that I could use. Like that one. Sort of, I know there's loads of reflections, I lie. But yeah, this is also one of the images I'm using to inspire my weathering for the BR side, and especially for the buffer beams as well. These must have been a bit camera shy, because there's not loads of pictures of these in colour. So for the fictional side, the nationalising, the Coldwood side, I'm just using a variety of just general colliery pictures just to inspire me. A little bit more in my wheelhouse. I spend most of my modelling time weathering colliery stuff, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at with this. This is inspiring my NTB side, and a combination of the others are inspiring the other side. So I've actually got two 062s with an NCB side and a British Railway side on my workbench at the moment, but obviously the 56 is what we're focusing on today. Now you can kind of see how the Stania locos kind of inspired the rust patching and the British Railways emblem being slightly visible through the multiple layers of grime, and obviously we've got the dirty buffer beam taken from the 56XX that was in colour. Yeah, early on, just using a lot of this weathered black and a lot of cotton buds, slightly moistened with saliva. Got two figures, one of them a Model U figure missing arm, one of them's a Dapol figure. Don't need to massively detailed to fill the cab of this. Usually I wouldn't use a Model U figure, but to be fair, I bought this one, I think when the first set of Bachmann Hattons, Andrew Barclays came out. He lost an arm quite early on, and I've not really been decided what to do with him, but I think he'll work on this project, and it'd be quite nice to kind of have him poking out of the window a little bit. And the other bloke's a Dapol figure, so yeah, they look quite good in quite an enclosed cab, which is what this is. So yeah, for the moment, weathering's going well, just ticking away. I've recently ordered some detailing parts for this. I'm hoping to get this all weathered up and ready for the detailing in a couple of days. I've been detailing this. I've added an etched nameplate, number plate to the top there, a lamp in the position of a pickup goods, and etched nameplate, number plates on the back. Obviously you've seen the weathering kind of previously. We've added a lamp there, as well as some tools on the NCB side, some tools on the fireman side, obviously the etched number plate again, and also there's two members of crew in the cab, obviously driver and fireman. One of them's a Model U figure missing an arm, and one of them's just a Dapol figure. But yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Just needs a nice little bit to kind of finish it off. Might put it out to Instagram and just see what people are suggesting for it. But yeah, I don't think it looks too bad.
What better way to finish this video than to surround my model with images of real life ones? Now, this model has probably had about 50 quid spent on it, including the actual purchase of the model. The lamps and the etched number plates were a couple of quid each, and the DCC decoder was probably 12, 15 quid, which is a bit mental, considering that the Loco itself only cost me 28 quid. But it's kind of come together to create a nice, detailed model. I mentioned that we've got a lamp here. Now this lamp is in the pickup goods position. In fact, it's the same position as this one behind in one of the images. Just probably what I'm going to use this for the most. Got the etched number plates, like I've said. This is 56, 58, not one that survived. Turn it round to the BR side. We've got a lamp here. Now this tends to be where they kept stuff on Great Western engines. Plenty of tanks had them in this sort of position as well. A little bit of rusting on the actual smoke box here. We can still see the copper cap, but it's very weathered out. And obviously you've seen me use 3 or 4 or 5 different tones of grey across this locomotive. Going from the bottom, we've weathered obviously the chassis and everything like that, and then going on to the body, we've weathered all the things that were black into a not black, and kind of built those grey and black tones across the model. Really quite happy with how this has come out here. The rusting coming around the water filler cap. I've never really been able to do this properly before. I'm quite glad I've been able to do it. It took me a little bit to do it, but I think it's come out quite well, and it's something that's quite characterful of these locos at the end of its life. This is what this is representing. A loco in the last 6 months of its life. Kind of see some other bits of rust creeping through just where I've seen it in other models and also other pictures of Western tank engines towards the end of their lives. We've got, again, another etched number plate there. This one's 56, 58 again. These tended to be kept in quite good nick. They tend to be quite easy to clean, so they did tend to be quite clean on locomotives, even towards the end of their careers. So this is the BR side. Really quite happy with this side. It gives the impression that I wanted, and that is that work-worn, not loved loco that's eking out the last few months of its existence, waiting for something major to go wrong on it so that it can be laid up on the scrap heap. The back, very much the same as the front, weathered buffer beams, black buffers with grey splodges on them, another lamp there. This is missing its coal, and that's because I want to fit it with real coal, but unfortunately I don't have any. Coming round to the NCB side, got another bit of rusting on the roof, not quite as much as on the other side. We've also got crew in the cab as well, the same etched number plates, the same sort of weathering underneath, with red rods, because the rules are red rods make everything cooler. We've also got the lamp that we saw before, the oil can here, and the fireman's tools here. You can see that this side's a lot heavily weathered. I really wanted to go down on this. Not lots of my colliery locos are massively heavily weathered, or at least not to this extent, so I thought this was a nice excuse to do it. You can barely see the NCB decals coming through there. We've got lots of rust peeling through on the water tanks. This happened to some colliery locos, especially ones big flat side tanks, where overfilling happened here, or just generally over time just bits got rusty and it just ran. And yeah, quite impressed with the effect on it, to be honest here. Really think it gives that impression of a hard worked colliery loco. Obviously none of these ever lasted into colliery service, although some Western 062s did. Granted, they tended to be the ones that were absorbed, so from like the Romney Railway or the Taff Vale. But yeah, this is what I wanted from this side. It's very industrialised in terms of it's got the tools and things on it, but it doesn't limit the use of the BR side either, which is nice. It freed me up a little bit to kind of basically have two models in one here, and that is a late BR loco and a late NCB loco on the other side. And I guess that's where I want to conclude this video. I'm really quite pleased with this project. Having spent about 50 quid on it, versus what would have to be about 130, 140 quid, including buying a chip for a brand new Bachmann one. I think I've done all right. But let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.